Hello and welcome to Alina Crochets. This podcast is about crocheting, having fun, and playing with yarn. Welcome to new and returning viewers. This is episode 7 about granny squares and spring cleaning in April. April is all about spring cleaning, getting ready for the summer, and having fun. And one way I like to do spring cleaning in my yarn collection is to create granny squares. Granny squares are these little squares here that you can add one color, two colors. You can do little samples, and you can make them as big or small, whatever size you would like to use up your yarns. With the granny squares, I want to show you what you can do and what you can make with them. I have some finished objects, I have some works in progress, and some new yarns to show you. So let's get started. First, what am I wearing? I am wearing my Hexagon Granny Square sweater, which I had seen in various Instagram posts, Facebook, and YouTube videos for the granny square. So I wanted to learn how to make it. This is a little different because this sweater is created with 6 sides as opposed to 4 sides in a traditional granny square. So this is the sweater that I created, and you create 2 sides. As you can see, you start here and you start building out to create the sweater. And depending on the size that you want it tells you 15 rows, but you can go 16 or 17, but you just have to be mindful of the sleeve. You don't want the sleeve too wide, so it just depends on your preference. And once it's done to the length of the sleeve that you want, what you can do is then add rows around the sides, the collar, and the bottom to complete the design as shown here. I added elephant buttons to complete the sweater. I think it turned out really nice. And I will post some pictures here so you can see the back and the front together. I am wearing my crochet hexagon cardigan made in various shades of orange. The second design is this granny square top, which is a simple top to create because I created one giant granny square, and once I got to the desired length, I just did some single crochets around it and then connected it to create this top. In this top here, I use various shades of grays to create it, but I use thinner yarn. So I use cotton yarn and some rayon yarn to complete this design. As you can see in the back, it's a little different where the granny square is not in a square but going up and down. I'd also seen some Instagram posts on these crochet shorts, and I was intrigued and I wanted to know how to make them. So I went back to YouTube, and I'll post the sites that I used on YouTube to create it. These are the pair of shorts that I created in the camouflage colors using various camouflage 4-ply acrylic yarn. In the video, it shows you how to make the shorts, but what happens is they're kind of short, so I wanted to make them longer. So at the bottom, I added several rows of single crochet, but in the design, you just have to be mindful the legs are wide, and I had to taper them in a little bit so they didn't swing so much, and I wanted it a little bit longer coming down halfway to my thigh. It's a pretty simple design to follow, and the video was really good in showing how you create the 2 pieces and connect them, and how you create the shorts at the bottom. Also in that color scheme, I wanted to create a little cowl. So I created this cowl using the same yarns, and I added black to it, but I used smaller granny squares and then connected it to the larger piece, as you can see. This is my camouflage shorts in granny square and my cowl made in the same yarn. So also with the granny square, it's easy to teach people how to crochet, and a friend wanted to learn how to crochet, and I thought the easiest stitch to teach her was the granny square. So I taught her the granny square, and she created this blanket for charity. And before I sent it off, I wanted to show you, and I'll post another picture here so that you can see the whole design. But this is her first blanket that she created by making granny squares. Once you get started with the granny squares, it's easy to follow each row, and you really don't need any written instructions once you get past the first 2 rows to create the granny square. I think this turned out really nice for her first project as a beginner. As you can see from some of the designs, I love the granny square. So here are a couple of more designs that I created with the granny square. As you can see here, this is 4-ply acrylic yarn in a tan, blue, and orange shade. And what I did is I started here creating a little circle, and there's a little hexagon design inside. And once I decided that this was the length that I wanted, I started creating the granny square around it. And I build up around the design, and then when I got to a certain length that I wanted to stop, then I started just going back and forth with the granny square. With the granny square stitch, it allows you to either go in a square or to go up and down by going row by row. Post a picture here so that you can see the design. In another design here, as you can see, I used a discontinued yarn, which was Karen's Spa and Country yarn. I love that yarn. It was a 4-ply yarn, but it was smooth, it was nice to work with, and I just enjoyed the various colors that they had in this type of yarn. So in this one, I created a tapestry dress and then have shells here, but the way I added the granny squares was on the sides. So I created the granny squares and then connected it to the front and the back to finish the design off. I will post a picture here so that you can see the design. And you can make anything with the granny squares. So here are a few designs that I'm working on currently with the granny square stitch. In this one here, I'm creating a shawl, and my increases occur at my fingertips, and I only have 1 corner stitch, as you can see on the bottom. The yarn that I'm using is Karen Ripple Cotton Cakes, and this yarn is really nice to work with. It's nice and smooth. It slides and glides through your hook with no problems. And as you can see, it has changing colors in there. The next item that I'm working on is a top similar to the gray one. I am using Hay & House Firecracker 100% wool yarn. This is a size 1 yarn. And these work nicely when you create them in granny squares because it's light. You can just throw it over a top and run out the door with a pair of jeans. So I just started creating the square, and this is the size. And it'll just be 2 granny squares together. The next design that I'm creating will be a shawl, but I decided that I would use 3 colors to create the shawl, and then create them in little squares this size, and then connect them to make a rectangular shawl. The yarns that I decided to use was Vanna's Glamour, which is the maroon one, the Jeans Cotton yarn, which is the blue, and 24/7 Cotton, which is the gold. I have created a few squares, so I have a lot more to do to finish the shawl. Let me show you some new acquisitions that I have since my granny squares have freed up some space for me to add more yarn. So I decided that I would purchase some yarns from Colinette. I had loved their yarns before and saw that they still existed, so I ordered some yarns. This is the first one I ordered, which is 100% wool, which is Colinette Sky yarn in various shades. It's variegated. The next one was I ordered this Colinette yarn, which is a ribbon yarn, and that these can go together, so they'll be matched together, as you can see. And I also purchased this sock yarn, which is 100% merino wool. And I will create a nice vest with this yarn. I also purchased some yarn from Lion Brand. They were having a 40% sale and I couldn't pass up the yarn. And so the yarns that I purchased is this Touch of Merino, Basic Stitch acrylic yarn. I have 2 of them. Kobo. And then they have this Mako cotton. This will be the first time I'll be using this yarn, but it looks nice. It's nice and smooth and soft. And then I saw the Soft Spoken, which is an eyelash yarn. And I fell in love with Mandala roving yarn, and I saw that they had some on sale, so I purchased 2 balls of this Mandala roving in the colorway Cinnabar. You can see the changes of the colors inside. The next yarn is Anya, which is 100% superwash merino. And this will be the first time I'll be using this yarn as well. And then they also had on sale this Penelope yarn, which is like a rope yarn, but you can unravel it so that you can crochet it and then the colors will come out. I can't wait to use some of these yarns to create some granny squares, because like this one here would make it easy to create the granny squares because the colors would change on its own. So it would make a cute top. And it should be enough. One ball should be enough for the front and another ball should be enough for the back. So I can't wait to use some of these yarns. This concludes episode 7. I hope this has inspired you to do a little spring cleaning and create some granny squares on your own. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. And remember, no yarn is off limits when crocheting. Thank you.